Hey guys, welcome back to the BuzWeaver channel, and in our continuing saga of the Epstein file case, we see here as a validation to much of what we talked about here on the BuzWeaver channel, and as Tim Pool mentioned, there must have been content within the Epstein files that were so damaging to government, to leaders, to world leaders, to businesses, to industry, to entertainment, to all sorts of individual people that it simply could not be released to the public. And most likely, there's any number of scenarios. You guys are welcome to give your thoughts and opinions down in the comments section as to the level of damage that could have been exposed here. Because it's possible that while during the Biden administration, they knew this information was here. They couldn't necessarily predict that Donald Trump would be the next president, but it doesn't matter. If information that is so damning and so critical that could disrupt government and world leaders and stuff, this simply cannot be released to the public. And I'm going to demonstrate and illustrate to you why this is so critical in just a moment. And it's what we've talked about here before, because people within the orbit of Epstein who had nothing to do with his island, Lolita Express, or any of the nefarious activity that he was involved in, doesn't involve them. But people will connect dots, which is what we're seeing here, because remember, this is a political back and forth. This is brinksmanship. Because first it was, we're going to release the files, and it was, we're not going to release the files. Then the Democrats used it as a leveraging point against Trump to try to reconnect dots to him and Epstein, which we already knew the information. We've already covered some of the videos and so forth that was released. It was already out there to begin with. The media tried to rebrand it again because they want to connect dots. They want to place doubt on Donald Trump because they think the Democrats, the machine, the deep state, the establishment think that Donald Trump infiltrated the office to undermine their will. Because for decades, the deep state, the establishment, have been in control of our country. They are the ones who have decided who our presidents are. I know that can seem a bit bombastic. I can't say the word. I just can't say it. And hyperbolic. But this is the truth. I mean, we can see this back and forth that's going on, and we're seeing it right now. From Mediaite, just in, judge orders release of Ghislaine Maxwell's grand jury records and scolds DOJ over treatment of victims. A federal judge in New York scolded the Department of Justice over its treatment of victims while ordering the release of grand jury materials tied to Jeffrey Epstein accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell on Tuesday. The motion to unlock the files was submitted last month by Attorney General Pam Bondi, who asked the judge to move quickly while a ruling before the deadline imposed by the Epstein Files Transparency Act. So you can see the game that's being played back and forth. The information we recently released here on the BuzWeaver channel, the videos and so forth, was just the Democrats trying to insinuate using assumptive techniques, right, and so forth, that they were releasing information. But in reality, we already had that information. But they wanted to give the illusion that they were putting out information because, you know, they dislike Donald Trump and think that they probably know, as well as everyone knows within these inner circles, what's actually there. So it could be a gamble. It could be them playing chicken to have the released information, because we've already seen, right, the delegate from the Virgin Islands who was actually communicating with Jeffrey Epstein during a Senate committee hearing. Judge Paul Engelmayer ruled on Tuesday that the documents must be unsealed, but not before chastising federal prosecutors for what he described as disregard for the women at the center of the case. So here is another example of a judge voicing an opinion, which he is entitled to, but you have to understand also, and I know you guys do, so hit that like button because you guys are shrewd, you guys are astute, you guys are aware, that the game here is positions of authority, positions of power, influence, and popularity. And so, of course, as we say here, the Democrats, the left, the machine, the deep state, the establishment don't like that Donald Trump is in a position of power, in a position of authority, and that he can voice and speak unfiltered by their gatekeeping. And this is a major issue for them. This is why Donald Trump is such a threat to them. The establishment uniparty has been picking our presidents for decades. They have been in control. They have been in control of the machine. And now, just like Tim Pool said also, Donald Trump is in control of the machine. Now, they're trying to disrupt and break it down or slow it down, but they are no longer in control, and it bothers them immensely. Shifting gears back to more online with the topic and people within the orbit of Jeffrey Epstein, we have from Business Insider, LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman says he learned a lesson from a visit to Epstein's Island. Note to self, Google before going. Now, you can find that amusing. You can find that funny. It's sad. This whole situation is absurd. And this is what I was talking about. People within the orbit or circle of Jeffrey Epstein that may not have been aware of what all was actually going on, and they just participated in not realizing what all was going on in the background, right? So LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman said he wished he'd known a little more before agreeing to spend a night at Jeffrey Epstein Island. On December 1st episode of Eric Newcomer's podcast, Hoffman said that he visited the island as part of his fundraising work for the MIT Foundation and was told the visit would make Jeffrey Epstein more likely to donate to MIT. So this is the orbit. These are the people that Jeffrey Epstein rubbed elbows with because, he was a financier and he gave advice and gave instructions and did these sorts of things. And this is what he did. Note to self, Google before going, Hoffman said on a podcast. He said he stayed on the island for one night and that there was a pool, a bunch of guest rooms, and a courtyard. Of course, he doesn't go into additional detail. Hoffman has maintained that the only interaction with Epstein, whose 2019 death while waiting trial on activities trafficking charges, was ruled a suicide through his work fundraising for the MIT Media Lab. On the Newcomer podcast, he called Epstein a masterful networker and recalled a 2015 dinner he hosted for an MIT research in Palo Alto, California. Hoffman said that Joy Ito, former director of the MIT Media Lab, asked him if Epstein could attend the dinner, which was also attended by Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg and Tesla CEO Elon Musk. Similar to his visit to the island, Hoffman said he was later told that the financier had said he was more likely to donate if he attended the dinner. So you see what's happening here, ladies and gentlemen? They're dropping names. They're dropping names by the media because this is what they do. This is all part of the maneuvering, right? This is all part of the maneuvering to make implications, to make accusations, to make assumptions, to give people perhaps false information to believe that, or I should say, it is assumptive language to cause people to think a certain way or believe certain things in a particular way. But there are people who are innocent who may not know anything. Now, Hoffman could be very well straightforward in saying what happened is exactly what happened. But you can see all the name dropping now. You can see everyone questioning, the whole idea of what's going on here and so forth and so on. But I'm going to tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, you guys already know because you can hit that like button because you're astute and you're aware, you're savvy, you know what's going on. The person who knows what all is going on is going to be Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein, of course, as you know, was the attorney for, did I say Jeffrey? I mean, Alan Dershowitz. I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. Yeah, so Alan Dershowitz, the attorney for Jeffrey Epstein, is going to know all this information because, of course, he had to compile all of the legal, documents and, amount of defense. And so he's going to know lots of information. And this is actually an interesting read here. But, of course, this is all going back to the fact that it's interesting that the media does talk to Dershowitz about this from time to time. Now, Dershowitz has been a very personality within the legal field, right? So he's been out there and people know his name and know who he is and what he does. He's a very famous attorney, and he appears on TV quite a bit across many different networks, across many different just shows and so forth for years. But he definitely knows what all is going on. He's admitted it. But he has also often said that he is under an NDA. So I have my crack staff, also known as ChatGPT. If you guys are using any of these large language models, please understand that they make mistakes, right? This is all a testing ground. This is all a testing process that these things are going through. So don't take it at face value. I've been doing heavy testing now for the last couple of weeks and even giving feedback back to the engineers. So just be aware, treat this with a grain of salt, right? It's almost like a chat box toy. Just don't take it too seriously. So anyway, I asked it about whether or not Dershowitz was under an NDA. Short answer, based on what is publicly available, there is no clear evidence in court records or mainstream reporting that Alan Dershowitz signed a broad, formal NDA with Jeffrey Epstein's estate or the government that bans him from talking about what he knows. However, Dershowitz himself has repeatedly said he is bound by confidentiality or similar language regarding certain Epstein-related information, which also certainly refers to attorney-client confidentiality and sealed or confidential statement documents, not a classic corporate-style NDA. So, another individual who knows the information, very much like the victims, because the Democrats, of course, wanted everyone to believe that there was information out there. Well, so they brought these victims out there because, you know, they have no shame. They did the same thing with many of the proceedings that they do with, right, with court justices and all these activities that they do to try to expose anybody. It doesn't matter who you are, what level where you are, whether you're, Brett Kavanaugh or whomever, right? We saw that with Dianne Feinstein when they brought out all these supposed victims and so forth, or victim of the justice there, and of course embarrassed him and his family. And but this is what they do. This is what the left does. This is what the media does. People in positions of power that they can't control are a threat and a danger to their system. So we can see here the distribution is quite wide. It's both left, center, and right, and it's always going to be a center of attention and conversation because this is a pivotal point. But I think that most people know, like we saw on November 5th, 2024, is that people already know what the media is doing. They're already up to what's going on. You guys here on the BuzWeaver channel also know that's why you hit the like button. That's why you support the channel. That's why you make your comments, because you guys know what's going on. And I think day by day, the Democrats are being exposed. And, of course, we have all sorts of things going on in the background. It's quite extraordinary. But this is quite fascinating, this continuing journey. It's interesting to see how it's going to end. You guys are welcome to leave your comments down in the comment section. If you believe that now that all this stuff is going to come out, possibly, maybe, the carrot on the stick still dangling, that maybe a lot of this stuff has been scrubbed, it's been redacted, or some of it has just been deleted and scrubbed and eliminated, and there's really nothing there. And so they don't even know how to present it. Because remember, as we've always said here, government is confidence. The economy is confidence. If people do not trust or do not have at least some level of confidence and trust in their government, in our laws, in our proceedings, it's a problem. But nonetheless, guys, thank you so much for your continued support. That's BitChute, Rumble, Odyssey. You guys have been amazing. And then appearing here on the screen for all of you watching on YouTube, that'll be the channel icon. You guys can click on that to subscribe, as well as to select notification. That way you'll know when there's content here on the channel. And I'll see all you guys in the next video.